I was in the middle of a term paper and I had it in my locker that got burned up. And I was kind of relieved because I knew we would get an extension. And I was always last minute anyway.
That's perfect.
I loved it.
You know, it's funny because you go from a small middle school and you're scared and you're nervous, and you get to this big old building and you have all these upperclassmen, and it's a little intimidating, but I loved it. Like, I was so excited and happy to be there. And I remember, just this little side memory, I remember I wore glasses my whole life. And I remember telling my mom, I will not be going to high school, I will not start the 9th grade unless I have contact lenses. And I said that was the rule. I said, I'm just not going to go to school anymore. So anyway, by golly, I got contact lenses, and it was a life changer for me. But anyway, I was super excited to go there, but intimidated because we were the small dogs on campus, if that makes sense.
Well, intimidated, and I'll make this really short. I was so intimidated by the upperclassmen guys, especially because they would hang out by the lockers in the main hall of the old building that burned, and they would size you up as you walked down the hall. So I would just go around the building.
She would say, Jill, will you please walk around the building so I don't have to walk down the hall in front of all these people? I'm like, okay.
And I don't know, I remember going down the hall and everybody's lining, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all the people, and everybody's looking at each other, and they all have lockers. I'm like, I don't even know how to use a locker. I don't even know what I'm doing. Just kind of walking down the hall. Hey, you know, I wasn't going to walk around.
You were more outgoing.
For sure. So, but my overall experience, I think, it's scary but fun scary. And then I also remember thinking, my parents both went to school at Winyah, and so they had kind of built it up. I've heard their stories and stuff, and so it was exciting to go and kind of see what that whole experience is. So.
All right, I have one.
What?
I thought this was pretty cool. Before the building burned, and I don't know if y'all remember this, we would have pep rallies before the football games. Yeah. And the marching band would march down the hall and have the old wood floors. I mean, it was loud. And we would all file out of our classrooms behind the band and then go to the gym for the pep rally.
I forgot all about that.
Don't you remember
that?
I
forgot all about that.
So exciting.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So that leads us into the school spirit thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
It was fun.
I don't know about, my kids graduated from Waccamaw High School, so I saw their school spirit, but I'm telling you, back in the day, it was a different feel altogether. And people were into it, and you had a pep rally every Friday before football games. Was that out-of-town games?
Just home games.
Just home games.
I think it's just home games.
So home games, and you would sit with your class. So you have freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, and there was themes, and there was skits that football players were doing. I remember them doing King
I forgot
Tut.
about that.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I
Remember
forgot
John
about that.
Etheridge and all the football players doing it. It was hilarious. So the football players would do skits, the cheerleaders would perform, the high steppers would usually perform. It was a big deal, and they would have contests. You would get the
Spirit stick.
Yeah.
Whoever cheered the
let's say it
loudest.
together. Ready? We've got spirit.
We've got more. We're the class of
'84.
And I remember this actually when I was looking back through some old yearbooks to trigger my memories on some things, and there is a picture of me with the spirit stick on the wall in my cheerleading uniform.
Yes.
Yeah, on the
And
wall,
I will
the
say
brick
this.
wall on the football game in front of the stand.
We got to vote on the new school colors and mascot for what is now Georgetown High School.
Yeah.
We were the last graduating class of Winyah High School. However, our athletic departments merged with Howard High School our junior year. And prior to that, after the fire, we got to vote on mascots and colors. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
so we were no longer the Gators, and we were the Georgetown Bulldogs in athletic department.
Right.
But we were still Winyah Gators, academically, I guess.
Winyah High School, Georgetown Bulldogs,
That's right.
athletic.
And also on Friday nights, after every home football game, there was a school dance in the gym. and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We look
Those are
forward
fun.
to
We'd
that.
have
That
to
was
go to
so
Bow
fun.
Monday and get our Esprit outfit.
Oh yeah, and I get put on layaway because everybody puts stuff on layaway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. Never done that before, but yeah, Bow Monday for sure. And the football games. I mean, speaking of like the pep rallies, I remember us doing as a cheerleader we made up this routine to a song "Burning Down the House." Burning
Oh
down
yeah,
the house.
talking heads.
Yes. And so we made up one, and it was like the coolest thing. I remember
Oh,
thinking,
yeah.
"Oh my gosh, this is so cool!"
And we also did a thing to whip it. By
Yeah, we did
Devo.
do it to
I mean,
whip
how
it, too.
80s can you get?
It's so
And
funny.
Jill, she was a member of the national. Y'all won a national championship.
Yeah, we were the High Steppers that were a national award-winning dance team, but and we were huge. I can't remember how many girls were on
There's
that,
a
but
lot.
it was a giant. But anyway, we performed at football games and sometimes at the pep rallies, and then but anyway, that was very fun.
They wore the big white hats, the sequin uniform, the white
Gloves.
boots. I did it for 2 years when it was Winyah.
Yeah, and it was very, very disciplined. That was Elaine Carter was our coach, and she did not play around. She meant business, and she knew what she was doing, and she kept us in line. And yeah, we were good. We were really good.
We had 14 cheerleaders,
We
which
had-
was a lot.
and Harriet Wren was our sponsor. We all loved Harriet. So I still see her. It's fun. It's fun to see her
So
out.
we had 14 cheerleaders because they merged Howard and Winyah. So we had some cheerleaders from Howard, some from Winyah. And I remember we had to spend the night party at her house on Front Street, the
Yeah.
cheerleaders one time. She was awesome. Yeah.
My
I
parents
lived
were
on
pretty strict.
restriction.
Yeah, you did. You did
I
live
lived
on restriction.
and your dad in particular was pretty strict.
Yeah, my parents were. Yeah, they were pretty. Which is a good. Looking back, I didn't like it, but in hindsight, it was probably good that they were.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that definitely was a good thing. And and as far as like school, I did get in trouble at school once. So as seniors, you could leave for lunch, and so I had a variety of friends, and at this time I was hanging out with some younger kids and friends, and this one girl and I was like, well, I can get off campus, and so she just rode with me, and so we both got suspended because.
You got suspended for that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think my dad might have fought that
When
one.
I said I lived on restriction, I think it's because I had an older sister, so they were going to be like really strict with me. It's not that I was that bad, right? Anyway, but I got in trouble twice at school. Once for writing fake notes excusing me for being tardy, signed by my mother, because I was always
I
late.
remember that.
Always.
Yep.
And
Because I used to ride to school with
and we
them.
had to
Same.
we had to meet with the assistant principal. Her name was Miss Kelly, and she said, "Miss Smith," to my mother, "Are you aware that your daughter's been late every day this week?" "Yes, I have." "Yeah," or "Yes, I am." And she said, "Well, are you aware that we've received notes signed by you? Did you write those notes?" "I most certainly did not." And I mean, she went off. And so the assistant principal said, "I think you're in enough trouble with your mother." So, but I did get an in-school suspension because in Sandra Balthus's Western Civ class, I think it was. Anyway, somebody shot a rubber band at me, and she was up at the board teaching, and I had it, and I was kind of wrapping it around my fingers, playing with it, Well, of course, it pops off and hits her in the head. And she turned around and wanted to know who was, and I was shaking in my shoes, and nobody said who did it. But then one of my friends narked on me and told, I won't say who the person was because I'll love her. But anyway, yeah, I had to have in-school suspension during our lunch and recess. I had to sit at a desk in the front hall.
Some bad punishment.
I know.
Yes. Yep.
I'm trying to think. I remember getting put on restriction a couple of times at home, but they didn't really follow through with that. But I do remember in school when paddling was.
Oh,
Oh yeah, 2 licks or 2 days.
Yeah, it's 2 licks or 2 days.
Yes.
And I remember those big guys going in and out of that office.
Yeah.
like a revolving door.
Right.
Yeah. Seems like they got rid of that somewhere around the end of our time.
They're just standing there with that paddle.
Yeah. Feeling like they got rid
We
of it.
need to bring
probably
those
then.
days back.
Believe it or not, I taught elementary school here in Georgetown, and at our school we were the last to do away with corporal punishment, and that wasn't very long ago.
Oh, really?
It's been about 10 years ago.
It's funny, you're talking about this, and my daughter's a teacher now at Winyah High School. And so she was telling me about an issue and, just little stuff in the classroom. And I said, well, why don't, if they're not listening, they keep pulling out their phone and listening to their music and whatever, not paying attention, and you can't take it away from them, then why don't you just send them to the office? That's what I'm thinking, how we were treated. And she's like, they don't want to deal with that. They're like, that's classroom stuff. You got to deal with that. We got bigger issues to deal with. And so it's just a total different.
Yeah.
And that is why I couldn't be a teacher.
Yeah.
Because it would not be a good.
And they said if you take their phones, then you're responsible. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of different issues now.
We didn't have that. Our biggest thing was passing notes.
Yeah.
Like slipping notes.
Yeah.
You still have some of your notes?
I had a box. full,
I have
but
no idea. I got so
have
much
some.
stuff in
I have
storage.
some. They're hilarious.
Yeah.
Which takes you also back to the yearbook signing.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. When the day that you receive your yearbook, they set aside time, which they still do in some schools. But you would sign your yearbook and the stuff.
And you'd write all kinds of stuff in
Yeah.
there.
And I would reserve a page for you because we'd like write a whole page.
Right.
What a devoted friend we were.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And pull those out now and read them. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I read one that I'd written to Liza, and it said something about the crawfish festival. They just started doing the crawfish festivals in Polly's, and how much fun it was.
See you next year.
And, yeah,
Yeah, like we weren't going to
Have
see
a
each
great,
other all summer.
Yeah, have a great time this summer.
yeah.
All 12 weeks of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, our parents didn't have access to our grades like they do now. You can go on the computer and see every grade your kid gets. What else?
I don't know. My kids are a little. I had kids starting fairly younger, so I feel like a lot of it was still fairly traditional, like I grew up. Maybe the last one with the having more all social media and so much in their faces, and so I think as a young person growing up, if I had the stuff 24/7 in my face about what you're supposed to be thinking and way you look, and you as
Compare yourself to other
girls you just
people.
already
That'd be
do that
horrible.
in
I'm so
teenage
glad we didn't
years.
have that. Would've
And
been
bullying.
Yeah, that's when you're
That
trying to
is
figure out who you
cyberbullying.
are, and now you're having all the stuff tell you
Yeah,
who
like
you
what-
should be or
right,
shouldn't be,
right.
and
The
I
pressure
can't.
of that is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
bad
it's
enough
horrible.
when you're a teenager. It's
was
bad
bad
enough
enough.
trying to, find out who you are and all. But yeah, I feel sorry for kids today.
Yeah.
I mean, because
I feel like they're missing something.
Well-
It's something in just growing up. Like we were talking about one day with some of our high school friends had gotten together because we're kind of all reconnecting again, and we were talking about just how your parents would just send you outside. And so I tried to raise my kids that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a lady saying, it's just so refreshing to hear kids playing outside. And I'm like, why wouldn't they be playing outside? But that's how we were raised. You went outside, you didn't come back in.
We're Gen
Right.
X,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Y'all,
and if-
it's
and if
summertime.
you're-
You leave home in the morning, get on your bicycle, and you come home when the sun is coming.
Well, first I had to cut grass
Yes.
and do all my chores,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
you-
chores. Yeah, we had chores growing up, and,
Yeah.
and that's partially my fault. I mean, I made my kids do some things, but nothing like what
Yeah.
my parents made me do, and my sister. Were y'all that way? I mean,
yeah,
I did-
I wasn't
I
as
did
good.
most of it.
Oh, I definitely did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
probably a mistake.
No. I mean, when I was growing up, I cleaned my house.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
saying we cleaned the
Yeah.
house, we did the yard, but I didn't make my children do as much of that as I probably should
We didn't
have.
want them to have to live the way we live. We wanted them to have better things than we did. I think that bites us all in the butt at
Oh
the end
yeah,
of the day.
absolutely.
So I'm sorry. What was your question? Going back to what you were saying.
How is your school experience different then?
Well, I will say this: parents were a lot more supportive. I mean, look at the example of my mother going in and blasting me to the assistant principal. But now it's like, and I'm not saying all parents by far, but there are a lot of parents aren't supportive of the school or the teachers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or their children. homework, not monitoring what their kids do as far as their schoolwork.
That's right.
And they never check the grades that are available to them until the end of the year, and then they want to know why little Johnny's going to fail
That's right.
the 4th grade the week
Yeah.
before school's out.
Right.
Went to the beach.
Now what can we
Went to
say?
the What can we
Went to the beach. All right. Go
And
ahead.
how about cruising the boulevard?
Oh yeah,
Oh, that-
cruising the boulevard,
that
and
was-
also the triangle. Paul
And the
wants you to
triangle.
Cruise the triangle and
Yeah.
the boulevard over here.
Yeah.
I don't remember cruising the boulevard over here
Yeah,
much. I remember.
we did a little
Did
bit.
we? Okay,
And do y'all
I can't remember.
going to
everything.
the Pizza Hut sometimes before
Yeah.
a game or after?
Yeah.
After a
Friday-
game,
on
I guess
Friday
it would
nights,
be.
yeah.
We didn't have a dance, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was kind of early on. That was probably our freshman year, maybe sophomore.
Yeah.
Bonfires at North Litchfield. Been to a few of those.
Yeah.
There wasn't really.
It seems like the pier, like we hung out at the Triangle a good bit, especially in the
at
summertime.
Halls. Yeah, we kind of, that was our place to hang out at the beach.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot to do.
And even like when it was spring break time, it could be freezing cold outside, but we were gonna go to the beach, so we tried to find a place between the
In the
sand
Dunes
dunes
that you could lay
that
out.
would block the wind, and you would hope that you would have some sun to lay out, and then we would cover ourselves in either baby oil, Afro Sheen,
Yeah.
iodine, anything that we
And a
could.
reflector. Remember the reflector
and-
black?
yeah,
And I'm
Blanket,
paying
yeah.
for it now with skin cancer.
Same. So
I'm still
imagine-
doing it.
So imagine laying in the sand, the wind is blowing, and you have baby oil all over you, and that sand is just getting all over
you.
you, and
Fun
it's
times.
pretty disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I rode the
My freshman year, my mother
Yeah.
started a petition because we lived in Belle Isle, and even though we were, in the county, they didn't send a school bus out there. And my mother started a petition.
And it's 5 miles.
So
from
I
there
had
here.
to ride the school bus my freshman year, which I was not happy about. And then as soon as I was able to drive, I drove to school.
and I had
And tell them what you drove.
Oh my God. An AMC Pacer. The ugliest car ever manufactured in America. And I had a big Rolling Stones tongue on the back window to make
The
it.
big fish tank
Yeah.
with the Rolling Stones.
We got all the cheerleaders in that car
Yeah,
one time and
we
went to
did.
McDonald's. McDonald's had just opened. Seems
Oh my
like it
God.
anyway. Yeah.
And so Lisa would give many of us rides to school, and she was late quite a bit, which I would have been late also, even if you weren't picking me up. But can I say this? She would get to my house, and she would have curlers in her hair.
I did. Yeah, the
Curlers
hot
in her
rollers.
hair, hot rollers, and then driving to school,
Right.
and she's putting on mascara, driving,
And tailing the
to
cars
school.
in front of me, which is awful.
And then whipping those curlers out while she's driving and putting mascara on, and then roll up in the parking lot.
I'll never
Ready to go.
forget. One morning, there were some stoners in the car next to us. I don't know if I can say that. So I pulled in. I was by myself this morning, and it was gravel. And I slammed on the brakes because, of course, I'm rushing, pulling rollers out of my hair, and the gravel made my
Two-wheel.
car, skid ahead. And I hit the side of the shop building.
Yeah.
Remember the shop building?
Yeah.
And I'm like. And I look over, and they're all over there just cracking up. I was embarrassed to get out of my car.
That's funny. Speaking of stoners, you had groups, which I think everybody had groups.
Yeah.
That was one of the groups. So you had
And jocks.
jocks,
Preps.
surfers, preps,
Punk rock was kind of a thing.
starting to come around.
We had punk rock day at.
Well, it was punk versus prep day. That was one of the.
Punk versus
That was
prep.
one of the like week leading up homecoming
Spirit
week.
week.
You had
Spirit
Spirit
week,
Week, and that was
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
days.
Isn't that wild?
And I never felt like I really felt. I didn't like to define myself in a certain group, so I just remember. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, a lot of my friends are preps, but I like to do all stuff a little off
I'm
beat.
hanging
So
out
I'm
with
dressing
these
as a
surfers,
punk.
too.
So-
Yeah. And speaking of all this, if I recall correctly, there was a smoking section.
There was
Yes,
a
there
there
was.
was definitely a smoking.
There was, and after the fire,
A
they
smoking
used
section.
like that yellow police tape, and they made a corral, and the smokers would
Oh, I
go
remember.
inside of the little designated area with the tape to smoke after the school
Yeah.
burned. I was always afraid to walk by the smoking area. They scared me.
There was
Although,
smoking.
although, I was smoking Virginia Slim menthol lights on occasion. Sneaking them. I'm sure I was not alone, but whatever.
Are we allowed to say what we did, like the bad things?
Yeah, so as y'all mentioned, in our senior year, we were able to leave the campus for lunch, and sometimes I don't know if I should say.
No, don't.
Anyway,
Angel
we would go out to lunch and get
Daniel's.
stuff at Daniel's restaurant, and that's when Land's End Restaurant Marina was open. So that was a great little spot to go run over and have some lunch and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we thought that was kind of cool. We're like,
Let's just say
the
our
big guys
senior
on tour.
year, we were legally allowed to have beer and wine.
Yeah, because the drinking age
We
was
turned
18. And it was
So-
our year that actually you were legal, illegal, legal, illegal.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it was, we had a house party at Toni's grandparents' beach house at Paulie's.
Yeah.
Our senior year,
Graduation week.
weekend. And we were legal to drink beer, and I think it changed either the day of graduation or the day before because we couldn't, like after that. We had to
Was
stockpile.
it that soon?
But we
I
did.
swear I think so.
But we still did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was weird. You were legal,
Yeah.
and then unlegal.
But now,
and
when
then
I
illegal.
think about it, I mean, 18 years old, able to,
That's
like
a
too
bad
young.
idea.
You could drink
That
beer,
was
but
a
not
really
liquor.
bad
really
idea.
bad idea.
Wasn't it
So-
beer, not liquor? Liquor was
No, you're right,
21.
it was
It was
beer and
only
wine, I
beer,
think, or
beer,
something,
wine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bad idea.
Well, I remember I was in math and science. I like math and science, and so I remember thinking at one time when I thought I might want to be a teacher, I remember thinking I love Miss Dargan, and she probably would never get any shout outs because she's a math teacher, a hard math teacher, and she was really hard, but she was good. And I just remember thinking she was so good. She was a good teacher. I loved trigonometry because of her. And so,
Love trigonometry.
yeah,
Have you
and
ever
it just
heard
made
anyone say
sense.
they love
It made sense. And it doesn't now, but it's funny. My daughter's a math teacher now, but
You used to have to help me with math. I hated math.
Oh, I'm terrible.
I
Well,
always
and-
ended up in these
Terrible.
like advanced classes and didn't know what the heck I was doing.
in math class, there were a lot of guys though, so that was a cool thing. There was, yeah, a lot of guys in math class. But my favorite, I don't know if my favorite, maybe teacher, I don't know, kind of be a mix, but my favorite class was speech and drama. Because I wanted to be an
yes.
actress my whole
Miss
life. That
Peterson.
was what I
Miss
really,
Judy
yeah.
Peterson.
Miss
Judy
Peterson.
Peterson.
I loved,
fun.
that was my favorite class. And then I had people in there that I didn't normally have classes with.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of guys, surfer guys that were in there, and I was
And
like,
older-
yeah,
and
like-
older
and older people, because you didn't
Yeah.
always have older people in your classes
Yeah.
back then. And so that was fun. But the one I did want to mention about with that, I thought this is the coolest thing, and I've told people this over the
I know what you're
years,
gonna say.
is survival in the 80s. So they did an experimental class with our class.
Ron Edgerton.
Yeah, and he was great. But anyway, so it was survival in the 80s. So it was life skills to survive the 80s. So we learned to like change a
Change a
flat
tire,
tire,
Balance a
some
checkbook. Read the stock market.
Yeah.
This should be taught at every school.
Absolutely.
At every level.
And it was only that one year
It's-
apparently. that
yes.
didn't-
They
It's
did.
life.
Sex
it's life-
education
it's
is
life
part of
education.
it.
Yeah, life lesson skills that
Yeah.
you have to know.
Yeah.
Drug
that
and
they don't.
alcohol education
Yeah.
too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
It's
and so it was him and Harriet Wren, and so they did it together. And so the girls for the sex ed would go to Harriet, and then one day we got to swap. And I remember people asking, and Mr. Edgerton was hilarious. So I remember
Loved
people
him.
asking him questions to make him embarrassed,
You make his
and it
face
was
turn red.
it was hilarious. It was really funny.
But that was kind of a cool course.
It was.
Yeah, it was, and it again needs to be done.
And
Yeah.
he was my favorite teacher,
Was
Ron
he? Yeah.
Edgerton, and I loved Mr. Inslee too, and dissecting the
Love Mr.
Oh,
Edson.
yeah.
pregnant
Oh, yeah.
sharks and the frogs, and
Mr. Shubrick,
Mr. Brick
Mr. Brick.
and Mr.
Loved him.
Jones, Zippy Jones.
Yeah.
He could
The
take.
noise, people, the noise.
I forgot about that. I don't
He
think
was
I had
very
it.
professional. He would wear a vest and a lot of times a jacket, and he could take his vest off without removing his jacket, and that was like
That was
his signature move.
Yeah, it was his signature move.
I don't think I had him.
He was hilarious. And Sharon Gordon was honors English, and I loved her. And I've run into her lately and been talking to her lately, and I'm like, you're still teaching.
Yeah.
Good job.
Huh.
I was
Good
in
job.
her class, the first advanced placement English class offered at Winyah High School. I did not get any credit for it, but I was in it, and that was my first real term paper I wrote. Yeah, she was an excellent teacher. She was tough.
Yeah, I wasn't in that one.
I remember like in the mornings getting ready for school, I would have the radio going or whatever, and I remember just like putting on makeup or whatever, and like a bulletin came over
Exactly what you're gonna say.
alerting about the fire.
WGTN.
Yeah. What?
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
Yeah, and so you're on the phone and you're calling anyway, and then I think everybody rushed to the school.
Yeah.
And it was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was
It
horrible.
was
that
sad.
was so dang sad.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, they kept saying on the radio, because like you get right, Winyah High School has burned to the ground. Yes, Winyah High School. And I got my mom's Ford LTD, white big car.
Yes.
I think I still had it on my nightgown. And I drove into town and rode by the school, and it was still smoldering, and it was just everybody was crying.
I remember
Yeah.
standing out there with the crowd and
Horrible.
crying, and God, it was just it's terrible, terrible. So yeah, I remember that. So, and that was, I mean, you went from this really cool old building with the big wide hallways, and like you said, the lockers line up and
Yeah.
down, and those wood floors that make that
Yeah.
Creaky
sound,
Yeah.
and then you're reduced to very
Portables.
little. Yeah,
Like
portables.
yeah.
And then trying to reuse other sections, and then they made it work, which I don't know.
And we
how
still
they
have
did.
the old Winyah building that's still
Right.
here today.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
a
exactly.
lot of portables.
Exactly, but I think as far as the merging of Howard and Winyah, it had to happen. You can't continue with segregation like that.
Yeah, and even though it wasn't like in segregation anymore, it was, I remember what my thought was, is or I was told Howard was the vocational school, and Winyah was college prep school. And so, but it didn't seem like, when you look at it, was it really? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But I might have been a little
But I will
clueless
say,
too.
when we
so.
merged, I felt like it went pretty smoothly. We were all kind of scared about it at
Yeah.
first because we didn't know them, they didn't know us for the most part. Some of the people who went to Howard, I went to elementary school with, middle school with, like Geraldine Smalls, and felt real comfortable. She's one of the cheerleaders,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But when we would do the basketball games, we would do them at Howard High Gym and at Winyah High Gym. We would alternate, and I thought it was pretty easy the coming together.
Yeah, I don't remember thinking anything bad about it at all. At all.
I mean, at first it was hard to give up the
The
Gators,
names.
the red and the white, and for Howard likewise to give up the Tigers and their colors.
Right.
And so once we got over that hump, I
Yeah.
think it was.
And I don't know if I can say this, but I think a question a lot of people had in their minds was there was the talk of the merger of the schools and whatnot, and then suddenly Winyah burns down. So I think people were wondering, was this
Yeah, there's always
An
is
intention.
that
Intentional
question
fire.
mark? Is
There
it-
was
is this
always
an
that
intentional
question.
fire, or
Yeah.
what's really happening here? But anyway,
There were a lot of theories.
a lot of
there.
a lot of
A lot of
theories.
conspiracy theories.
I didn't really date. Well, first my dad was pretty strict, but and I don't know that I felt always comfortable being alone with guys. So I would prefer to be around. No, I might have had some crushes of guys. I'm like, and they're like, oh yeah, you had a crush on him, Toni. You remember that? And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. But I didn't ever have like any long-term boyfriend or go out with somebody for any length of time.
I will. There was my freshman year, this guy and I dated for 2 whole weeks, and he happened to be my now husband's cousin. And I remember being on the phone in the kitchen and going into the dining room with a long cord,
The 20-foot phone cord.
and closing the pocket door so my mom couldn't hear. We were
Right.
having our little conversation, and he said, "I love you," on the phone, and I said, "I love you too." And my mom's like, "What? What did you say?" But and then my first date was with someone who we went to the Plantation House
Yeah.
that the players owned, and
Yeah.
had dinner. And it's funny, I can remember what I wore. I had wool, like camel colored pants and a matching jacket. and a wool sweater with like little ducks on it. Very preppy.
Yeah.
It was my freshman year, maybe sophomore year.
My first date, I wore a surfer shirt
Well then.
because I went out with Joel. That was my
That
first
was
date.
perfect for Joel. That was Lee. Lee was my first real date. So,
That's very
what about
funny.
you, Miss Jill?
That's very funny. I really didn't have any boyfriends. I had crushes, like you said,
Yeah.
but nothing serious.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Let's talk about beauty pageants.
No, let's don't.
This is Miss Winyah sitting next to you right here. Miss Winyah High School.
My face is going to be red now.
Beer wave, beer wave.
Yeah, and I mean, it was, I don't know, I kind of felt like it was kind of a joke. But anyway, the JV cheerleader sponsored me.
Yeah,
And
you got elected by like a club
Different clubs.
to sponsor you to be in the
That's
pageant, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, and I mean, there was never any thought that I would ever win that. I mean, I was like embarrassed to even almost be in it. And but I did like the dancing part when we had to dance to a song to come out. Anyway, that was fun.
Lip syncing, lip syncing.
Yeah, I still remember the song.
what was
It was Jesse's Girl.
Oh my God, Rick
Springfield.
Can you sing a little bit of that?
If I could sing, I would. But you had to have a talent, and I didn't really have any talent. I really didn't. And so I'm like, well, what the heck is my talent? And so I like drama, so I did a little skit. And so
I vaguely remember that. What was?
I
the
don't
skit
even remember
about?
what
Do you
I
remember?
did. I can't remember what I did. I just know I did a skit, but I can't remember what it was.
Oh yeah.
And what was that? Our senior year?
That was junior.
That was junior year.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
find the years kind of run together after a while, but I remember being in, I don't know if it was junior or senior year. Did Lori Maring win one?
I don't remember.
Anyway, I remember being one and I got Miss Congeniality. And you know what that means. Like, she's really nice, but she ain't gonna win this video.
That's not
She's
true.
really nice, everybody. But anyway, I laughed about it when I got it.
Wittiest in our senior
Yeah.
class.
Oh, yeah, superlatives.
Yeah.
Senior
Most
superlative.
spirited.
And
And
I
then you
was
were best all around. Yep. Yep.
And I remember they went down, I remember going down to the marina and having pictures made.
Yeah, Lands and Marina.
Yeah.
At Lansing Marina. So Joel Wood and I were wittiest. And
Me.
I remember standing up on the
Yep.
top, like the top of one
Yeah.
of the boats there, having
Yeah.
those pictures.
Jay Emery and I were together because I ran into him like from 30 years ago, and he's like, Toni, it's Jay, most school spirited.
Mine was, his last name was Gamble. Y'all help me with the first
Jerry?
name. Jerry Gamble.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jerry Gamble.
I love Jerry.
Yeah. Jerry and I posed on the back of a boat, maybe?
Yeah,
On the dock? I can't remember.
It's fun.
that is very funny. All right, so speaking of skits, I remember we had school talent shows back then too, and I remember Lisa and I singing.
Oh, I remember
Mrs.
that.
Robinson,
Mrs. Robinson.
by Simon and Garfunkel.
And we were dressed in our parachute pants.
Yeah.
And our hospital punk rock looking
Yeah.
shirts. But anyway, but our microphones were hairbrushes because that was the best that we could do.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And then it was a 33 RPM vinyl record, and we put it on 45, so it was like really like fast and high pitched voice, and we
danced around.
we
with
danced
our
and sang in front of the whole
hairbrushes and-
school like
Yeah.
idiots.
Me and Laurie won the acting award for the
Did
school. It was a split. They'd cut and choose
Oh,
between the two of
wow.
us. So the two of us, the drama award, the drama
Drama.
award. But I remember I did like a solo skit. I don't even know. I just made it up. I don't know. Anyway, went out and it was. Now that I look at it, I'm like, that's kind of dark. Because I thought about it, I'm like, wait a minute. But it was about like a teenager who was going through stuff and was mad at her parents and left, and she was like, I'm just going to run away, and trucking through mud in the woods, and then it was quicksand, and I started going down in the quicksand, and then I was
wow.
reflecting on all the good things, like, oh my gosh, and remembering, and I
Somebody
really
pulled
like
down
my
the
life.
quicksand.
Yeah, and then, well, I don't know if you know at the end how it ended. You're just
Okay.
going through like the reflection back
Darn,
on.
Toni,
That was
you
kind
were
of.
deep.
I didn't know I was. I thought I was pretty shallow, but I mean.
That's funny. That's funny.
It was.
No,
At one point, it was.
I don't think so.
Yes, I remember going to the Wisdom. Maybe not in
Not
high
in high
school.
school,
Maybe
no,
not
no,
in
no.
high school.
Yeah.
How about the pavilion out at Caines?
No, that was gone. I think that's why we hung out at the Triangles, because a lot of I don't know about your parents.
My
maybe-
parents went
Yeah,
before my
like
dad,
all of our
my
parents
mom's.
hung out at the pavilion. That's all we ever heard about, especially my mom. Always
they
about
were
the
all
pavilion.
shaggers and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And it's a shame that's not still there.
Right.
What a
I
cool
know.
It would
piece
have
of history
been.
that would
it
be.
would
But
have
I
been.
do remember the arcade warehouse on the beach on Pawleys Island on the north side.
King's Funland.
Yeah, King's Funland. And how cool was that?
That
Oh,
was
I know.
cool. They had a jukebox.
It was right
there.
down the street from our
And
beach house. It was
skee-ball.
awesome. Yeah.
And then
And then the
trampolines,
trampoline.
and little putt-putt.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
skee-ball.
Yeah.
It was like bowling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how did that ever happen on the
I
beach?
don't know.
On
Beachfront.
Pawleys Island?
And then
Yeah.
the place to go, like
And beach.
senior year and as we were going into college, was the
Sand
Gray
Park.
Man.
Oh, yeah, the Gray Man. Gray
which is
Man,
where
yeah.
the Lashcott Company is now. I think it's called Christie's now or something.
Yeah.
We did go to
at
the Gray Man a
Pawleys,
lot.
The Gray Man was the place. It was kind of like the Pit is today. That's what the Gray Man was.
It was like bar and restaurant, but mostly bar, and so they had lots of live music going up. So, for example, like Hootie and the Blowfish used to play there for free probably before they were a thing, and I remember being in there, and
That's
how awesome
crazy.
that was.
And I remember the mullets, but they were called Millions of Dead Mullets at the time.
Yeah,
They shortened
yes.
it to the Mullets.
Yeah, so they've been around for a few years.
Yeah, and then Sandpipers was another place, but we had to
Yeah,
be older.
you had to be
a
older to go
member
there.
or
Yeah.
whatever, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, Front Street didn't have like the clothing shops that it does now. When we were growing up, there was a couple of places like Bo Monday.
Right.
Was the cool spot to go to, but Lisa's husband Michael's family owned the Hallmark shop
Yeah.
on Front Street, and then they had a lunch counter in the back.
called the Delta back
The
then.
Delta, yeah, it had the lunch counter in the back. So I do remember going there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And
That was
yeah,
kind of the
we
place
did
to
go there a
eat
lot,
on
yeah.
Front Street.
Yeah.
You get like a Coke float and
Cherry Coke.
Cherry Coke.
Crinkle
Yeah.
fries,
like best
chicken
crinkle fries.
sandwich.
Yeah.
All that was good
Yeah,
stuff.
that
and you
was
had
good.
Belk's was on Front Street.
Fogels.
Yeah,
Fogels,
Fogels,
yeah,
which is
Fogels.
where Fogels Wharf is now. Remember that was a 2-story department store.
Yeah.
The jewelry
Yeah.
section. Of
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and when I was little,
Where we used to
ups-
get Attabees.
Yes, you would buy
Yes,
Attabees.
I
And
forgot
do you
about
remember
Attabees.
Twisted Beads?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were popular at one time.
And onyx rings.
Yeah.
Upstairs at Fogels was the children's department. Do y'all remember that?
Yeah, and it was really small.
Yeah.
And it had this. Wasn't that staircase kind of sketchy?
Yeah.
It was like a.
Yeah, I think it was.
Not
I
something-
forgot about
not
that.
something
And
that-
Ryan's shoe store, that's where we
Yeah.
all got our shoes, which
Yeah.
is, I believe, maybe where the Big Tuna is, or close to where the Big Tuna
Yeah,
is now.
yeah, right around
Yeah.
there. But like the number of restaurants. I mean, Thomas's Cafe obviously
Yeah.
has always been there, and then what else?
Daniel's.
Daniel's, which is now burned.
The rice patty wasn't on Front Street, it was like on Prince, maybe? Church
Street.
Church.
Where Robert Pontiac was.
Yeah.
So they
that's
moved.
right,
They
that's
moved
right.
locations
Sorry.
a couple of times, right?
Yes.
If I remember correctly, and
Front Street.
yeah,
Yeah, usually if you went out to eat, like seafood, for example, you always went to Merle's Inlet. I mean,
yeah.
that's just
You would
where
go
went.
to
Or Polly's.
yeah, Plantation
House.
Plantation Inn,
Yeah.
Or Merle's Inlet.
or up to Merle's Inlet. Which at that time there was probably 5 functioning restaurants. Wayside,
Wayside, Lee's Inlet
Lee's
Kitchen.
Inlet Kitchen. And so if you went to dinner at 5 o'clock on a Saturday night at Wayside, you literally there would be a line of people out the door, around the building, and down to the creek. The kids would all play at the creek, but you had to wait
Yeah.
for a good hour or so to get there.
Good
and
times, good
and they
times.
had big baskets of hush puppies that they would put on all the tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And if you had leftovers, you'd put it. You get the little paper bag that your silverware comes
Oh
in.
yeah, and
you
put the hush puppies in there. I forgot about doing that. Yeah.